Rodriguez for Idaho State Senate.
Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on our very first webcast for the Diego Rodriguez for Senate campaign. My name is Diego Rodriguez, and I'm running for Senate in Idaho District 15. Now, we want to let you know that this is a live webcast, meaning you do have the opportunity to interact with us, and everything is happening live. Meaning if there's any mistakes, there's no post-production editing. This is all live, happening in real time. So we want to let you know if you want to interact with me and you want to ask me questions, the easiest way to do it is to log in beneath me. So we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. You can see beneath me, there are 3 buttons that you can log in either through Facebook, Twitter, or through chat roll. So if you have a Facebook account or a Twitter account, be sure to just go ahead and log in, click any one of those buttons and log in now, and you can connect with us. If you do not have Facebook or Twitter and you still want to communicate with us, you still can do so. Simply send me an email at contact@diegoforsenate.com, or you can use the text messaging feature by sending me a text at 208-477-1558. You can see the number right here above me to send a text to, and also the email address. So thank you again for joining us. We want to get right into the meat of the presentation tonight. And then, of course, we will be taking Q&A at the end of my presentation. I have my assistant, Chelsea, here with me, and she's also going to be moderating the chat room and responding until we get to the Q&A period. So if I do not get to your question right away, don't worry, we will be getting to it before it's all over with. So that being said, we want to go ahead and get right into a short presentation that I have. I want to share a little bit with you about me. And go ahead and, Jake, bring up the keynote presentation so you can learn a little bit more about me and my candidacy. I mean, after all, I'm trying to represent you in District 15 here in Idaho. So I think it's important that you know as much about me as possible. So we want to go ahead and get started. I want to share with you a little bit about my background. I am a Christian family man. I'm also a businessman and an entrepreneur. Something that's not as well known is the fact that I also served for nearly 10 years as a pastor of an inner city church in Central California. Yes, I know, the dreaded California. But I completely abandoned California. I consider myself a political refugee. We came here seeking a refuge in a conservative place because we're conservatives like you are here in Idaho. In fact, I've got a much longer story that I'll share with you at another time. We don't have time tonight to talk about it, about how we chose Boise. Because the reality is we could have picked anywhere in the country that we wanted to move to, but we chose here for a very specific reason. And part of it is because we want a great place to raise a family, and we were looking for a place where there are people of like minds. Today, I work primarily as a marketing consultant and a business growth consultant. I'm also a professional speaker and a trainer for businessmen. So my business is Power Marketing Consultants. My clients hire me to help them grow their businesses and help them do their marketing. I also train entrepreneurs all around the country on how to basically take their businesses to the next level. Like I said, I'm a family man. I have 5 children. Here's my lovely wife and my 5 children. That's Mariah, Miranda, Marissa, Micaiah, and Manoah is the little guy. And of course, my lovely wife there, who is a little bit older than me, but I'll let you try to figure out which one she is over there, all right? She actually often gets confused for my daughter. She likes that a lot, and I think it's pretty cool too. But right off the top, I want to answer the question that I bet some of you are asking. Why am I running for Senate? Why am I doing this? Why am I involved? And what is the driving impetus behind me running for Senate right now in District 15? Well, to make a long story short, the answer right off the top is I really don't want to do this. I'll tell you that right up front. But it's something that I feel compelled to do. Somebody asked me this here recently, and the best analogy I could come up with is that of war. I mean, who wakes up in the morning and says, you know, I can't wait to go to war. I want to go to war where I'm shooting people and where people die and my best friends die right next to me. Nobody wakes up and says to themselves, I want to go to war. But we have young men and women who dedicate themselves and volunteer in our armed forces out of a sense of duty. They feel the need not only to serve their country, but to preserve the freedom that they love and to preserve the principles upon which this country was founded. So they do something that they otherwise wouldn't want to do out of a sense of duty and a compulsion that the time is necessary and that they are in a unique position to serve in that capacity. And I feel exactly the same way when it comes to running for Senate. This is not something that I say, hey, I want to do. I'm a private sector man. I'm a businessman. I enjoy the private sector. I enjoy being an entrepreneur. I enjoy training other people. I enjoy helping businesses grow and hire more people and do those kinds of things. So then why am I involved in the Senate race? Why do I want to get involved in Idaho state politics? Well, it's not that we want to do it, but I am absolutely persuaded that we are in historic times. And I don't just mean this to sound cliche. I mean it from the depths of my heart. I believe we are in times perhaps not completely different from the times of our founding fathers when they fought a revolution in order to have the freedom that they wanted to have here in this country, on this continent. And I believe that our freedoms, not only are they being taken away, but they've already been stripped away from us. Too many of our freedoms have been taken away, and I cannot sit idly by and do nothing. I've been a vocal proponent of many conservative causes, and I've been a vocal opponent to many liberal causes and things that I feel are destroying our country. And at some point in time, I had to step up and say, I can't just complain about it anymore. I can't just be an activist anymore. I can't just throw my 2 cents here and there, but I need to enter the fray and do what I can to actually make a difference. Some people make their difference outside, some people make their difference on the inside, and I believe there's room for everybody in God's grand economy. This is a division of labor, but I really believe that it was a calling that was incumbent upon me to step into the fray and be on the inside to help change things so we can preserve our freedom here in America and specifically here in the state of Idaho. So that is actually the short version of why I'm running for Senate. And that being said, as a candidate, I wanted to make sure we're not entering into this race being just like any other candidate saying, hey, I'm a conservative Republican, vote for me. I mean, let's be real, folks, that doesn't mean anything anymore. All these Republicans who call themselves Republicans are not even holding to the party platform, let alone conservative ideals. It was just at a Central Committee meeting here recently, and I read from the Republican Party platform that in text I support, but many of the most important statements in the Republican Party platform are simply not being upheld and are simply not being followed by our elected Republican officials. And so these things bother me. I imagine they bother some of you as well. So we really have no idea what our representatives are going to do or are doing. So one of the things that I've done for our upcoming campaign and for my candidacy is we've created something called the Candidate Clarity Statement. And the purpose for this is simple. I want everybody to know exactly where I stand and how I make my decisions. So it's not just, well, Diego opposes this and he believes in this. He opposes this and he believes in this. But I want you to understand the principles. In this case, there's 3 primary principles that I believe in, that I am going to be supporting and that I am going to be endorsing, that I want you to recognize Diego is making his decisions based on these things. So for example, the first one is constitutional purity. I'm always going to vote in favor of legislation that is in alignment with the original intent of the founders who signed the Constitution. And I'll never vote in favor of legislation that is not in alignment with the Constitution, nor will I ever support legislation that's outside the proper role of government. I'm never going to do that. So you can go to my website and you can read and download my entire Candidate Clarity Statement. The other 2, of course, are free markets. I believe in free markets, and you can see my affirmation statement there. And also, of course, I believe in traditional values. So you'll see that I'll never vote for something I deem to be immoral. So go to my website at diegoforsenate.com and you can download and read the rest of my Candidate Clarity Statement. In addition to that, we've also created an oath to prevent tax increases. And what this simply says is this, and I understand there's a lot of skepticism when any Republican says, hey, I'm opposed to taxes and I don't want to increase taxes. And the skepticism is there, and rightfully so, because every time a Republican says that or they make a pledge, what do? They break the pledge and they don't care anyhow. Mike Simpson, our congressman right here who represents most of District 15, he broke the pledge. He made a pledge and then went on the news saying, hey, this wasn't a marriage contract, saying he can break it whatever he wants to break it. And this is just wrong. Our representatives should do what they say. They should be honest men and honorable who do what they say and say what they do, right? So in this case, to keep myself accountable, I have an oath to prevent tax increases. It's right here. You can download it from my website. And this is what it says. I, Diego Rodriguez, do solemnly swear to resign my office in the Idaho State Senate if I ever cast my vote in favor of any overall tax increase upon the citizens of Idaho. I will only support tax legislation that effectively lowers the overall tax burden on taxpayers. This resignation will become effective immediately upon such a vote being cast while I serve as a senator in the Idaho State Senate. Now, here's the thing. This is not just a pledge, folks. This is a legitimate contingent letter of resignation. You also can download this off of my website so you can keep me accountable. This means as soon as I ever cast any vote in favor of a tax increase, I'm done. I've lost my position. I'm out. So this isn't simply a pledge. This is a commitment and an oath that you guys can download and hold me accountable. Now, I want to address a question that you may have regarding that. Excuse me there. And the question is this. This is actually a question I already got from one of our constituents. And the question was, Diego, how can you commit to that? Or is this some type of gimmick that you're trying to pull here in conservative District 15? Because once you get into office, this is what I was told, you never know, you might actually have to raise taxes to increase revenue to the state treasury because there's things we have to do at the state level and we're going to need the money. So you can't lock yourself into a hole that way. Well, I understand that sentiment and I understand where people are coming from, but let me just respond to that here publicly so everybody understands my position and why I would be willing to step out and make that type of a commitment, or in this specific case, an oath. The reason is simple. We are already taxed at a level high enough that raising taxes will not actually increase revenue to the state treasury, meaning we've already passed that point in the curve where increasing taxes increases revenue to the state treasury. It doesn't anymore. We can show you dozens and dozens of case studies throughout history. One of them is everybody's favorite place, California. Of course, I'm just kidding there. And every time they've raised taxes in the last half a dozen years, what has happened? The state treasury's dollars go down. Why? Because raising taxes doesn't always bring in new revenue. Because what legislators always seem to forget is taxes is not just an issue of math. It's not, we're low on numbers, let's take more money from the people and those numbers will increase. What they forget is on the other side of those ledger statements, on the other side of those numbers, are real people. Real human beings who have feelings, emotions, hopes, desires, dreams, and it's their money the state is sucking them dry from. Meaning this, when tax laws change, human beings, not robots, but human beings on the other end of those tax laws change their behavior to avoid paying the taxes. And in the process of changing their behavior, they change the economic activity within our economy, and ultimately less economic activity means less dollars to the state treasury. And that's what happens. So number one, we're not going to generate more more dollars to the state treasury, number one. Number two, we're already taxed enough. We're already taxed too high. We do not need to steal more money from the people through legal plunder to redistribute it to other people. Rather, we need to be more efficient about the funds that we already have and make government more useful to the people as it serves in its proper role. So that's my answer to that question. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you guys capture that. The next thing I want to share with you that I think is very important is something we call the Constituents Communication Plan. Now, it is a belief of mine that one of the major problems we have in government at all levels, at the city level, county, state, and federal government especially, is that constituents have no idea what their representatives are doing. So what we've done is we've created a constituents communication plan so that we can keep you informed throughout my entire term in public office, and not just when it comes to election time. So we've set up a website at diegovotes.com. And during the actual legislative session, I will keep a running log, a blog if you want to, that will show you how I vote on every single bill and why I voted the way I did. Additionally, we'll use modern technology like blogs, text messaging, email reports, surveys, printed newsletters, anything and everything we can do to maintain communication, not just during the legislative session, but before, after, and particularly during, so you know, here's exactly what I'm doing, here's exactly why I'm doing it. I think this is incredibly important that people know what their legislators are doing and that they communicate and have open dialogue. Because the reality is too few people have any idea what's going on at the State House. And I think that we've got to do something to change that. Now, by way of example, I want to show you one of the tools that we might use. So here is a little example. Here's a test or a sample of one of the things we can do once we start with our campaign, or excuse me, once we are in office and we have enacted and executed the Constituents Communication Plan. This here, of course, is a QR code. If you are familiar with how this works, you can just take out your cell phone and scan this. When you text your name and email address to this number here, you're going to get an automatic response that's going to ask you if you really do want to receive text messages from me. Once you go ahead and agree to that, then you'll get another email from me thanking you for participating in the test. And I'll also send you an email right away so you can see exactly how the system works. And the point here is I just want you to see the potential of being able to have two-way access to your legislators, not just when they're trying to raise dollars or get your vote, but all throughout the entire year through text messaging, through emails, through newsletters, old school print, because we still have access to do that, and every single means possible, social media, everything, so that you know exactly what we're doing, and most importantly, not just what we do, but I think you need to know why. Why do we vote up? Why do we vote down? Why do we do the things that we do? And why are we voting in the manner that we're voting? So anyhow, these are just three very simple campaign innovations that we are sharing with you. You can see them on my website, something that we are standing for, something that I think is really overdue in state politics. All that being said, as much as I appreciate technology and as much as I appreciate the way we can communicate through those means, there still is no better way to communicate in my mind's eye rather than live, meeting one another live. So that being said, we do want to let everybody know right now to mark your calendars, because next week, 1 week from today, we're having a live town hall meeting here at the Julius Kleiner Park, at the center of the park, also known as the Meridian Senior Center, 1 week from today on April 15th at 7 p.m. Now, of course, April 15th is what day? It's tax day. It's the day that if you haven't paid your taxes yet, you know you've got to get it done by next week. And this is the day that's a great day to remind us, basically, how many freedoms that we've lost, how much tyranny has really been enacted upon us. And I hope it helps to bring to our mind what we can do to fix it, because there is still a lot we can do, particularly at the state level. It's right here at Julius Kleiner Park again. It's here specifically, right here in that building. We really hope that you can make it. So go ahead and write that down and meet us there. We're hoping that you can be there. You'll meet with me live. You get to meet my family live, interact with us, and really get to know us and what we believe. One other thing I'd like to share with you, because we are already starting to run out of time, I want to get to your questions and answer them as soon as possible, is we have this brochure. It's a full color brochure. They have been printed. We'll go ahead and bring that up so you can see what that looks like. And we want you to go ahead and, when you have a chance, go to our website and download that. Now, if you live in District 15, then we're going to go ahead and send you a copy of it. If you do not live in District 15 and you want a copy of it, go ahead and go to our website. In fact, I'll bring our website up now. So this here is our website, and when you come here, if you want a copy of it, all you have to do is come over here to the Contact the Campaign button. Click this button right here, and you'll see there's a contact form. You just need to fill this out, and under the message section, just give us your address and let us know you're requesting a copy of that, and we will send you a copy from the campaign in the mail. Of course, you can go to pretty much any page as well and download it by just clicking it in PDF format right here. But if you want a physical copy, just fill out this form in the Contact the Campaign page, and we will send it to you. Okay? So that is that. And of course, at this time, what we want to do is I want to go ahead and open this up for some live Q&A. There's lots of stuff that we covered already, and there's lots of questions I'm sure you guys have for me. So what I want to do here is, give me just a second right here. I'm going to bring your chat feed, here we go, right here, right next to me. And now I can see exactly what you guys are asking me about. So go ahead and bring it back to me here, Jake. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me them right now. I can see them right here on my screen, and we can go ahead and respond. So if you've got any questions, now's the time to do it. And I see everybody is here. Fantastic. Yeah. Great, great, great. Any questions you guys have, go ahead and fill them out here as well. You can go ahead and go to my email, and I see that we have a question here from text. So we got a text that says, what would I do to get Idaho out of Common Core? Great question. So here's the response. Of course, me as an individual, I am one vote. However, more importantly than just being one vote, we also have the opportunity to influence our contemporary legislators. And based on my constituents' communication plan, we have an opportunity to reach out to the constituents in a way that I think maybe others probably don't. So another example of our constituents communication plan is this webcast we have right here. This is a way that anybody can interact with us online like you guys are doing right now. And these are tools that we're going to be using once we are in office as well. So I settled to say this: I absolutely am opposed to Common Core, and I will work together with the rest of the legislators and hopefully Russ Fulcher, that I hope becomes our newly elected governor, who they likewise oppose Common Core. But let's just talk worst case scenario. Let's say we have an Idaho State Senate that supports Common Core. Let's say that we have an Idaho House of Representatives that supports Common Core. And let's say that we have a governor that supports Common Core and a superintendent of public instruction that supports. Let's say everybody is in support of it. This is a worst case scenario. We do not want this to happen, but let's say it does. Then the question becomes, what about the public? What does the public think about Common Core? If and when the public is educated about these issues, they always, by and large, they support the right side. What I would do, in addition to my work in the state Senate and at the state House, I would use the power of our constituents communication plan and even my own marketing agency to run campaigns locally, marketing and advertising campaigns to educate the public so that even if the legislators are not on our side, the public is on our side. We go right over the modern day media. We go right over the state legislators, go straight to the people and get the people on the right side and cause them to force the legislature to do the right thing. So in addition to voting the right way, we want to use the constituents communication plan that we've already shared with you to help to bring people over and persuade them to do the right thing. So hopefully that answers your question there. Any other questions here? Fantastic. We've got a question from Elizabeth. And Elizabeth says this. She says, what is the best way for Idaho to opt out of Obamacare? Well, before I answer that question, I want to give you my answer to that question, but let's come back here really quick to the website page here. So we'll bring up the website, and here's what I want to show you really, really fast. For those folks who don't really understand what's happened here at the with our state healthcare exchange, is I want to share with you a resource that actually comes from Russ Fulcher's campaign. So if you go to russfulcher.com, you can see here's his website, and here's our good buddy Russ. Please vote for him. If you don't know about Russ, visit his website, take a look at it. But click here on this Press Kit button. And down here, there is a document that says 6 problems with a state-operated Obamacare exchange. I highly encourage you to click the download flyer button right here and download it. I have a copy of it right here in my hand, and this is going to share with you, and I think everybody needs to download this, and here's why. We've got 6 statements that are the governor's claims as to why he voted for the state healthcare exchange, which is simply Obamacare with the Idaho seal of approval on top of it, including our existing incumbent state senator in District 15. Somebody asked me, we talked about earlier, why are you running? A big reason why I'm running is because we didn't have the right representation here in District 15. Our senator was not voting the right way. He supported the state health care exchange, and he had a lot of the same reasons as the governor states right here. And of course, Russ replies to each one of those, and there's 6 reasons down here why there's problems with the state health care exchange. My answer to that question is twofold. So Elizabeth asked the question, what's the best way to opt out of Obamacare? Well, number one, the first thing we need to do is we need to repeal our state health care exchange here in Idaho. I will do everything I can in the state Senate to be a forefront vocal proponent of that movement to repeal the Idaho State Healthcare Exchange. But the most important thing we can do is simply stand on our 10th Amendment rights. I mean, these senators and these legislators all talk a good game, and they say, we have states' rights, and Idaho is its own state, and we're a sovereign government and all that. But then they just give in, like pushovers to the federal government every time, instead of exerting our 10th Amendment rights that state that we are a sovereign government, and anything outside of the Constitution is left to the people or the states respectively. We simply can stand on the 10th Amendment and tell the federal government no. And that is what I will support in the Idaho State Senate. And obviously there's greater details involved in that, but that is the core message, and that's the core principle behind what I will do and what I believe when it comes to the Idaho State Senate and it comes to Obamacare specifically under the name and the guise of the Idaho State Healthcare Exchange. It's the same things, folks. Obamacare, AutoCare, State Healthcare Exchange, Federal Exchange, it's all the same thing. The State Healthcare Exchange is simply the federal exchange with Idaho employees. It's all the same stuff. We don't have a seat at the table. We do not have any sovereignty when we're doing it that way. We're not protecting our state. In fact, we're just kowtowing to the federal government. We're simply giving in, and that's not what we should do. So let me head back to your questions. Hopefully that answers your questions. Let me back up here a little bit. There's a question that I just missed. Let me back up. Okay, here's a question from Stephanie. Stephanie says, how are you different from Fred Martin? Well, Fred Martin is our current senator here in District 15, and I want to tell you outright and up front, I like Fred. I think he's a nice guy. I have not got a chance to interact with him much. We've only met a few times. We did share lunch together a few weeks ago when we talked about the campaign coming up. I took him out for lunch so we could talk, and I could meet with him eye to eye, and we could talk about the campaign that would be coming up. Now, the difference between me and Fred Martin is manyfold. But the easiest way to determine this and to look it up is on the back of our brochure and also on our website, there's a candidate comparison guide. And you can see some of the major issues where Fred and I differ. Now, some of these major issues are things like the State Healthcare Exchange. Fred unabashedly supports it, and even though the majority of his district who was contacting him told him to oppose it, he did it anyways, including myself. He essentially let me know that he didn't really care what my opinion was or the district. He was going to support the State Healthcare Exchange because he knew best. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why I'm running right now. Another thing, of course, is that Fred has not consistently supported the 10th Amendment and states' rights. And his vote for the Idaho State Healthcare Exchange is a blatant and glaring example of that. Of course, he does not have an oath to prevent tax increases. He doesn't have a candidate clarity statement. And, of course, he doesn't have a constituents communication plan. And he has not shown himself to reject the overall growth of government. Also, when it comes to Common Core, I absolutely am opposed to Common Core. Fred has not come out and given us that type of clear direction regarding that issue as well. So I just highly encourage you to go to my website and go to Fred's website, take a look at the issues and take a look for yourself to determine the specific issues. Anything beyond that on a case-by-case level, feel free to ask me now or feel free to ask me in person next week on Tuesday, or feel free to send the campaign an email and I'll respond that way as well. Next question. Ariana Borze says, this is Sean. So this is Ariana's dad, Sean, who I know, my friend. Do you support nullification? The simple answer to that question is yes. However, let me give you a little bit of reasoning behind this instead of just saying, yes, I do. And that is simply this. Folks, the Constitution of the United States of America is a document designed by our founding fathers to limit and restrict the power of the federal government. It was the states that created the federal government, not the other way around. And it was designed very specifically so that we have essentially a free market of states. Back then it was 13 states, and you could go to any state you want and they were all different. And you could see, hey, Georgia's going to be different from Massachusetts, it's different from Pennsylvania, from New York, from the Carolinas, et cetera, et cetera. They were all different. And we basically had a free market where these governments would be competing one with another. And the Constitution, which defined the power of the federal government, was very limited in its scope. It says the federal government can do this, 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 this. Basically about 18 things that are defined there in Article 1 of the Constitution. So we see there's a very limited number of things that the federal government is allowed to do. Everything else was left up to the people and to the states respectively. Now the question I have for folks all the time is simply this. If the Constitution is the highest law of the land, correct? Then when we have a federal government that breaks the law, the highest law of the land, by rejecting the Constitution, it means their activity is illegal. If their activity is illegal, my question becomes this: who has the power and who has the authority to stop the federal government? Sean, I'd ask you this question. I say, Sean, if there was a law that was passed that says, hey, everybody who's named Sean needs to be thrown in jail, and of course the entire public opposes it, it's unconstitutional, but it gets passed by the Congress anyhow, the president signs it in the middle of the night, it goes to the Supreme Court, it's upheld in a 4-5 decision, and now all of a sudden the federal government goes around and starts rounding up everybody named Sean to throw him in jail. What do you think we should do? Should the state government say, well, you know, it's the law, so we have to just obey it? Hogwash. It's unconstitutional. It's wrong. And we as states are authorized by the Constitution, the 10th Amendment specifically, to stop that tyrannical overgrowth of the federal government. So to the extent that the federal government has gone beyond, and blatantly, obviously gone beyond, its restricted powers and its enumerated powers in the Constitution, yes, we should stop them. Anything, however, that's within the Constitution, we must subordinate ourselves to the law of the federal government as it states in the Constitution. So we're constitutionalists. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in supporting it. So I said all only to say there are some people who claim that nullification is a form of anarchy and overthrowing the federal government. We don't want to overthrow the federal government. We want a federal government. We just want it to stay within the confines of the enumerated powers that are stated plainly in the Constitution. Hopefully that answers your question as well. So we have a question here from Jason. He says, after repealing the exchange, what do we replace it with? Do we eliminate the barrier to cross-state insurance sales, state cost pooling, something else? Great question, Jason. And Jason, by the way, is also running for office here in District 15. I highly suggest that you visit his website at jasonforidaho.com. Jason, if I got the website wrong, please type it into the chat box and feel free to promote yourself, because I am supporting Jason and I wholeheartedly endorse him as well. But the answer to the question is simply this: let the free market solve the question. We should not have laws restricting people from buying across state lines. How is that freedom? How are we telling people you are free and you are free to do whatever you want to do? Oh, but you can't do this and you can't do this, you can't do this. You can't choose the light bulbs you want. You can't spend money the way you want. You can't buy products the way you want, but you're free. How is that freedom, folks? That's not freedom. The answer to these questions are actually a whole lot easier than people realize, because we do not as individuals, and we certainly don't as legislators, have to have the answer to all these questions. God has gifted us with the free market, and the free market will answer these questions for us if we simply let it take its course. Meaning, let's remove those restrictions, let's let insurance companies compete one with another for our business, and let's restore and bring to fruition a great health system and a great health insurance system here in this state, and let's start a domino effect that starts happening in states all around the country as well. So my answer is very simply, let the free market solve that problem for us. The next question: we need more high-tech jobs and more high-tech employees. How can you improve this instead of the trend for various call centers and low pay? That's from Janie Townley-Backer. Janie, that is a great question. I am going to refer again back to the statement that I had earlier about the free market. And here's what I mean by that. It is not the role of government. It's not the job of government, either at the state level, city level, county level, or the federal level, to create jobs. And the federal government can't create jobs. It can't create high-paying jobs, low-paying jobs. It can't create any jobs at all. In fact, the government can't create anything. The government simply takes. So the government is a legal plunder. I'm saying all to say this is that I'm a business owner, and 100% of my clients that I work with every single week are all business owners. I can tell you how and why business owners make the decisions that they make, because they consult with me on how to make the best decisions to help grow their business and to try to help get themselves out of bad economic conditions. So this is what I deal with every day. And I'm telling you, private sector business owners make decisions that allow them to hire people based on issues of taxation, regulation, competition, all different types of things that they have to deal with. If we have the government saying, what are we going to do to get more high-paying jobs around here? The only thing they know how to do is tax, regulate, and legal plunder. Let's take money from some people so we can create jobs over here. Well, we don't recognize that when we're taking money from somebody over here to give it over here after the government has taken its own healthy piece of the profit, right, for bureaucratic reasons, we have just taken money out of the private sector here that otherwise would have been jobs. I can tell you right now that I have my tax bill that I have to pay. The tax bill that I'm having to pay in the next week is enough that I probably could have hired 2 full-time employees that I now can't hire. They would have been great paying jobs, but I can't do it because it has to go to the federal and state governments. And these are the same type of issues we have everywhere. So the answer is the way to create better high-paying jobs is to reduce the regulations that we have on existing businesses and lower their tax burden, because when you lower the tax burden on businesses, the number one place businesses spend money is payroll. So the more money they get to keep, the more money they get to put into payroll. And so the answer is, let again the free market solve the problem. It's not the role of government to try to choose winners and losers in the business world. That's up to the private sector to handle themselves. Great question. Hopefully that answers it there for you. Yeah, Missy, fantastic question. Missy says, you need to look at Fred Martin's website because it says that he does not support Obamacare. Missy, that's a great question, and I'm not here to speak for Fred specifically, but here's what I will tell you, and myself included. Don't believe the things politicians say, believe what they do. So if someone says, I do not support Obamacare, yet I unabashedly voted in favor of the Obamacare state healthcare exchange, how do those two things resolve themselves? That's a question that you need to ask him and everybody else who voted in favor of it, because they all voted in favor of the state healthcare exchange, which is Obamacare. So that's the only thing I can say there. Stephanie asks, Bill wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Constitutional Convention? Great question. Now let me answer that after I get a little sip of water. So, a Constitutional Convention, also called a CON-CON, or what now they're calling a Convention of States, is something that a lot of conservatives right now are looking at. They're saying, hey, this sounds like a great idea. A lot of conservative leaders are promoting it. I want to tell you right now up front that I adamantly oppose a Convention of States and a Constitutional Convention, and here is why. The reason why is very simple, and I want to ask you guys this question. I'm sure you've heard all different types of sides, proponents, people who are for it, people who are against it. But here's a simple question I want to ask you. Do you believe that our federal government is right now currently obeying the Constitution? If you believe the federal government is currently obeying the Constitution, then perhaps a CON-CON is a good idea. But if you do not believe that we are obeying the Constitution, then just think for a minute. The purpose of the Convention of States is to allow the states the opportunity to amend the Constitution. So there's basically 2 ways to do it. The way that we've done it traditionally, in the most common way, is that the Congress passes certain amendments in the Congress, and then once they've passed them, it turns over to the states, and 3/4 of the state legislatures have to ratify them. Once 3/4 of the state legislators have ratified it, then of course it turns into amendment, and it becomes, the highest law of the land. The other way is through a Convention of States or an Article 5 convention. And here is where a bunch of delegates from all the states get together in a CON-CON or a Constitutional Convention or the Convention of States and propose amendments there. So here's my question to you. Number 1, do you believe that the federal government is currently obeying the Constitution? And if you don't believe they are, then the question I would ask is, if we're not obeying the Constitution as it is, why do you think we would be obeying a newly amended Constitution? That makes no sense. It's totally illogical. If we're not obeying it right now and we're not holding to it right now, we're not going to obey it if we change it. That's the first thing I would state. The second thing I would state is, let me ask a question. When the Republicans and Democrats get together, who stands for what they believe in and who compromises? You answer that question for me. If you really think the Republicans and Democrats are going to get together and the Republicans are going to be the one that get what they want and the Democrats are going to compromise, I think you're crazy. Let me give you a perfect example about how we don't get what we want and people don't get what they're always told. I have right here in front of me, having to do with amendments, the State of Idaho Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2013. Now, what you can't see right here are the actual numbers. So we'll just go ahead and bring it up. What you see right there is the numbers. You can download this from the Idaho State Controller's website. The number we have highlighted, you can see, is 2013, and that is our state debt. It's $1,393 million, or $1.4 billion if you just want to round it up and use the term billion instead of 1,400 million. Here's my point in showing this to you. Folks, the state of Idaho has a balanced budget amendment. If we have a balanced budget amendment, look back to 2004 and you can see there we had 556,000, right? That was basically, 556,000 or 500 million, and now we're up to 1.4 billion. How have we grown almost $1 billion in the last 9 years in debt when we have a balanced budget amendment? You can bring it back to me. So that's a question I want to ask you. If we have a balanced budget here in Idaho, in the state of Idaho, you guys have been told we have a balanced budget amendment, and we do. So you probably thought we don't have any debt. But as you saw there, we've got $1.4 billion in debt because we're simply not obeying what the intent of the law was. See, the law stipulates that we just have to pay the debt service. So we can go into debt as long as we can pay the debt service on it and pay our interest. But here we keep going into debt. Most conservatives are in support of the Convention of States because they think we'll get a balanced budget amendment. But even if we do you really think we're going to obey it? Are we obeying the Constitution right now? If you don't think we're obeying the Constitution as it is, I do not know why anybody would think we're going to obey it if we change it. The second thing is, do you imagine how disastrous it will be if we let all of the modern day media with the modern day low information voters all come together to support opportunities to change the Constitution? I mean, folks, it's only us, it's the conservatives who obey the Constitution. They don't. Let me give you an example of some of the amendments that have already been proposed by states who want to have a convention of states or a con-con. One of the ones right off the top is Amendment number 2, right? The right to keep and bear arms. A new amendment's been proposed that they want to bring to the Convention of States to extract the Second Amendment, to repeal it. Boom, right off the top. The state of the state of Hawaii, by example, has introduced an amendment that says this: we want the entire text of Obamacare, that 2,700-page monster and still growing. We want the entire text of Obamacare to become part of the Constitution. I mean, the Constitution fits on one page, and they want the entire, one big piece of paper, they want the entire text of Obamacare to become part of the Constitution. Folks, it's a Pandora's box. We don't want to go anywhere near it. Plus, think about it. Look at American history. After the 15th Amendment, folks, we do not have a very good track record amending the Constitution. Look at the 16th Amendment, income tax. It was a disaster. Look at the 17th Amendment. It was a disaster. We destroyed states' rights by going direct election of senators. It was a disaster. The 18th Amendment, we actually repealed later with the 21st. And we can go on and on and on. And we can show you that America doesn't have a real good track record when the public is not informed and easily persuaded when it comes to the con-con. So I'm absolutely opposed to a convention of states, regardless of how well-intentioned some supporters of it are. So hopefully that answers that question. We still have plenty of time. So let me ask some more questions. We got some here that I missed. Oh, I think that's the same question there George asked about the Convention of States. So Elizabeth asked, what are my thoughts about the land board's practice of competing with private business? So forgive me for taking a drink there. First, let me describe what's going on here. And then I'll give you the answer. For those who are not familiar with what's going on here, we have something called the Idaho State Land Board. And the land board has 5 members on it. It's the governor, the lieutenant governor, the state controller, the secretary of state, and the superintendent of public schools. And their responsibility is to work with state endowment fund to basically make money for public education. Okay, so oversimplification, but that's what they do. And they do it without legislative oversight. And here's what's going on, and this is just absolutely, it's unbelievable. I have no other words for it. I'm speechless when I found out that this was going on. A year ago, I had no idea this was going on. Now I know, and I'm just dumbfounded that such a practice is even being allowed. But this board, these 5 members of this board, have been actually buying up property here in the state of Idaho and taking that property that is publicly funded, so it's subsidized by our tax dollars, to compete with businesses in the private sector. So for example, let's say that you own a mini storage business. You have a mini storage business on the corner, and across the street, the state government, using your tax dollars, buys the property and builds a storage unit to compete with you using your tax subsidized dollars. So you're subsidizing your competition. First of all, not only is that ridiculous, but where in a free market and in a free society is there room for the government to be involved in private sector business? Folks, that's the road towards tyranny. That's what communism is about. That's what socialism is about. When the government has businesses and the government is involved in business and it's not in the hands of the people. That is absolutely the wrong path for anybody and everybody, for the whole world. And guess what? We're doing that right here in Idaho. It's absolutely abominable. I can't believe it's going on. And yes, it's happening right here. Those 5 members are all partially responsible for that, and I 100% oppose it, and I'll do everything in my power to not only, one, expose it, but to stop that from happening. But if you guys want to be involved in stopping that from happening, which I think you should, vote for Russ Fulcher. Vote for Todd Hatfield for State Controller. Vote for Lawrence Denny for Secretary of State. Vote for Jim Schmelik for Lieutenant Governor. Vote for the guys who will tell you and look you in the eye and tell you, I will no longer support the practice of our state government buying up private land to compete with private businesses. It's just wrong. Next question. Alan wants to know my thoughts on federal control over state lands. So, Alan, it's a great question, and here on page 6 or 7 of my special report, you can see that I've detailed this right here. We're talking about controlling our state land. But for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Jay, go ahead and bring up the picture of the state land here. What you were looking at here, folks, is a picture that came from the Bureau of Land Management. We didn't make this up. They gave it to us. Now, I hope this makes you sick to your stomach, because when I saw it, I just flat couldn't believe it. What you're looking at here, folks, is everything in red is controlled by the federal government. 63% of our land in Idaho is controlled by the federal government. What you're looking at there is untapped wealth for Idahoans. This gets back to the question that was asked earlier. What can we do to bring high-paying jobs here to the state of Idaho? Well, again, the state can't create jobs, but it can sure reduce job opportunities and prevent jobs from coming here. Bring it on back to me. Let me give you an example. That map that you guys see right there, that you saw just a second ago, on that land controlled by the federal government, not only is there oil there, but there's a ton of natural gas. Idaho has the opportunity to be an exporter of energy. If we as the government let the private sector create business here by tapping into our own resources that we have. We are resource rich here in Idaho. Private sectors can compete, they can produce. The government can't produce, it can only take down and take away. We could produce an entire industry and a thriving energy industry here, where we export energy here in the state of Idaho. Idaho imports currently most of its energy. The energy that's powering this webcast, energy powering the lights in your house today, the bulk of it is imported, and it shouldn't be. We have the resources here in Idaho to take care of that ourselves. So step one is for us to get our land back. And go ahead and come to my laptop here, Jake. I want to show you guys a website real fast. This is the website of the American Lands Council. I highly suggest that you guys go there. It's called AmericanLandsCouncil.org, and you can see here states like Texas down here and states like North Dakota, these states that are booming, they have economic booms in their states while the rest of the country is in a recession. It's because they're energy exporters. And we could do it too if we had control of our land. You can bring it back to me, bro. But we don't have control of our land. However, there is precedence through using information you get there at the American Lands Council, but there's also precedence in our country where, for example, the state of Hawaii got back the federal government land that was within their borders, and now it's controlled by their state. Precedence has already been set that we could do the same thing if we had a governor and a legislature with the backbone to tell the federal government, get off of our land, we can control it, we can handle it, we'll take our own land back, and then we will manage it properly and help Idaho become an economically prosperous state. So I'm all in favor of Idaho taking our land back. Folks, it's our land. I mean, think about it just for a second. I asked a question on homepage on my homepage video. Imagine you had $100,000 in the bank right now, but you couldn't tap into 63% of it. If you couldn't touch 63% of your own wealth, how many opportunities would you miss, and what could you not do? Getting back to the question about high-paying jobs, imagine a business owner. Let's say you're a business owner and you got $100,000 in the bank, but the government says you can't do anything with 63% of it. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. And if you can't touch that 63%, you only got the rest. How many jobs could you not fill? Turn it into $1 million. Turn it into $1 billion. Here we're talking about literally billions of dollars when it comes to energy. Those are high-paying jobs Idahoans should have if the government would simply leave us alone. So there's my answer to that. Hopefully that answers your question. Got a couple more questions here. Yes. This is just some of you guys, some of my friends here harassing me. That's good. I love it and appreciate it. Chelsea, did I miss any more questions? So I think we covered most of the questions that everybody has here. If I did not get to your question, we're basically out of time. And if I didn't get to your question, here's what I'm asking you to do. Go ahead and go to my website, fill out the contact form, and on the contact form that will come directly to me, we will respond to your questions and your emails as soon as we're able, and you'll hear from me directly. Other than that, I want to remind everybody 1 week from today at Julius Kleiner Park, there is going to be at 7 p.m. at the center at the park, also called the Meridian Senior Center. We're going to have a live town hall event where you can meet me, you can meet my family. I'll share with you some more of my ideas for helping Idaho become a better place to live, and we're also going to take more Q&A from everybody there. So I want you to not only take that for yourself, but invite anybody you know in or out of District 15. Of course, we want as many people from District 15 there as possible, but we'd love to meet everybody here in the state of Idaho, because at the end of the day, even though I am running for District 15, the reality is we do represent with our votes the entire state of Idaho. That is a recognition as well. So I want to say again, thank you to everybody. If we missed your calls, if we missed your text, or if we missed your text or your emails or any of your comments or questions, we will do our best to get to them if you send them via email. Other than that, thank you folks for being here. We do ask for your support. If you like what you hear and if you believe what we believe in and you want to restore freedom, we definitely do ask you, please vote for us and take a look at the information that we have on our website to answer any more questions. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing this time with us tonight. And take care. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Idaho. Take care.
Vote Diego Rodriguez for Senate.